Beavers pick up their first win of the season, but it took a last-minute drive and a missed field goal to take down FCS foe Portland State. What does it mean for the outlook of Oregon State football this season? And can they get things turned around before opening up Pac-12 play in a couple of weeks? Talkin Beavers starts now. Beavers staying put for their non-conference finale this weekend against Minnesota. Smoke and haze hanging over Reeser, but the Beavers have continued to practice outside this week. We'll talk about whether or not they plan to change that a little later in the show. Welcome into Talkin Beavers. Amanda Maynard, Lindsay Schnell, Evanson Bernard. We're going to get Mike Parker's take on just how he thinks this team needs to fix their run defense. We're also catching up with a former Beav now in the NFL, what life has been like for him, and what he's seen from the Beavers in week 1 and week 2. But in the lead up to Portland State, we talked so much about this team needing to come out and dominate. They said it themselves, they need to come out and dominate. We did not see that. They get the win. But what was your initial impression from watching this?
It doesn't matter to me that they got the win, to be honest. The damage is done. This is a bad football team. I mean, I guess they can improve, certainly, but I don't understand how they're just going to flip a switch and suddenly be better. Like, I don't know if they can win another game.
Yeah, that was tough to watch for me. I was hoping for them to come out and do something to prove to us that they can compete in the Pac-12s.
One of the defensive leaders, I thought, had some pretty interesting words to say after the game. Let's take a listen.
I felt like we expected too much. We needed to respect our opponent a little bit more. But we needed to make those adjustments as the game went on, and then we did. It could be better, and we're going to work on that this next week.
So, not respecting your opponent. I mean, what was your reaction when you heard that?
Okay,
that's a very
I have a lot of thoughts.
statement.
That one was tough.
I'll say this: they wouldn't have won that game without Manasseh. His pick 6 was huge, but even every series he wasn't in, they were in trouble. What the heck, though? How do you not respect your opponent? Did they all watch the same Colorado State game that we did?
It's Division I football. You got to respect every opponent. I'm confused.
And the Big Sky has beat this program before, so.
Well, it almost makes you wonder. I mean, Evanson, one thing I think you brought up was that, you know, maybe guys are looking at pad their stats in those games, so maybe it's just a totally different, they were looking at it as a different type of game versus a bounce back, get on the right track, fix everything.
Yeah, I guess, because when I see opponents, when I used to see opponents like that in the schedule, I was ready to pat my stats.
By dominating them, though.
By dominating.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get out of the game by third quarter. I wanted to be on the bench watching the second and third string do work.
Having some water, take a little sip of water, relaxing. Lindsay, I feel like I already know your answer to this question, but I mean, has this team regressed from last year? We had so many high hopes for this team, year 3, a lot to be excited about.
I think so. I mean, last year when we watched them play, especially at Minnesota, I think about a lot. There were a lot of positives to take away. I don't really see that many positives right now, which is really troubling. Like, this is supposed to be the year that things flip. Now, it did take 4 years at Washington State. That's worth pointing out because that's a really comparable situation to OSU. But, Ev, I think they're worse.
It's tough. It's a tough situation, but I will say from the quarterback play, I think the offense is a little more dynamic. They can throw the ball deep. They can run the ball well. I think they got a lot of receivers they can depend on. But yeah, it's tough. I don't know.
And it really seems like that 2-minute drill that they put together, I mean, they really looked good. 6 of 6 for Luton, methodical, in crunch, and they find a way to win. What are some of the positives you see in that situation, Ed?
I enjoyed watching that 2-minute run. It looked great. I mean, the weekend before at Colorado State, it looked great. Or not great, they didn't look great, and they got better. So you can see that there's progression, and they're getting better and more confident. And even Jake looks confident, you know, 6 for 6 on that drive. I mean, that looks good.
And that was certainly something that I know Gary Anderson said when asked about progression from week 1 to week 2. He saw the biggest improvement in that kind of, you know, quick, hurry up offense. You think they should incorporate that a little bit more? Do you think we'll see more kind of packages like that?
You know, with a 2-minute drill, you play a different type of defense. Let's be honest. You're a little more softer in coverage. Yep. But yeah, I don't know.
This is what I think. It's not the offense's fault that they look terrible. It's on the defense. But the flip side of that is the offense is just going to have to outscore people right now because I don't think the defense can stop anyone.
Can they do that?
Well, it's going to be really hard. I mean, in the Pac-12 is not a defensive conference, but I think it's more realistic that the offense outscores someone than the defense stops someone.
Yeah, defensively, I didn't see an improvement from week 1 to week 2. So.
All right, well, we're going to have much more defensive talk to come. Plenty of it, I promise you. But first, it was cut-down weekend in the NFL. We take a look at which Beavers landed on the 53-man roster. And up next, Mike Parker on how they turn things around in the run defense. Back here in Talkin Beavers, and it's time for our Wilson Motor Game Balls. We'll start with Evanston.
I'm going to go with Noah and Jake Luton. Love how Jake did that 2-minute drill at the end to win the game. That's huge. That's huge. It shows a lot of confidence. And then obviously Noah, another week, man, looked great. 5 catches, 95 yards. We talked about him in the offseason, how great he would do, and he's definitely proven to be an X factor.
Okay, Lindsay, who do you have?
How can you talk about the 2-minute drill at the end and not talk about that true freshman, Isaiah Hodgins? You know, he caught 5 passes for 59 yards, but more importantly, the game winner as a rookie. Thought that was huge for them, especially week 1 after they targeted him so much. The fact that his confidence didn't go away. You know, this was a read on Jake's part. The winning touchdown was Jake had to read whoever the corner went with. The corner went with Noah, so he threw it to Isaiah. Isaiah told him in the huddle, Jake, I'm going to be open. Throw me the ball. I love that confidence.
Lots of love for the offense this week. To get his take on the stars of the game, we're bringing in Mike Parker from Corvallis. So Evanston has Noah Togiai and Jake Luton. Lindsay is taking Isaiah Hodgins. Who stood out to you in this one?
Amanda, I've got to, with due respect to the others, Noah Togiai was more physical in the blocking game. He's a tremendous receiver, but played more physically. That's important. Jake Luton had his best drive as a Beaver when it really counted, but he connected with Isaiah, so I'll lean with Lindsay on this one. Isaiah Hodgins with 2 tremendous catches in that final game-winning drive. Great throws, yes, by Jake Luton, but for Isaiah as a true freshman to rise up in that situation, shades of Brandon Cooks, who played as a true in 2011. That's a tough position to play as a true freshman, and Isaiah's certainly looking the part. I also noted that Tino Allen, a true freshman, was getting some significant reps late in the game, trying to push, I think, Jordan Villeman a little bit further along. So I really like the way Isaiah played, but Tino Allen may be getting some more looks as we go forward, too.
So on the not so positive note, the defense has given up over 1,000 yards in 2 games. I know the run defense is of particular concern. How do they fix this?
Well, they're doing everything they possibly can. I think more than anything else, Gary Anderson is just wanting his guys to understand the structure. The biggest thing that Gary and the staff are, I think, still high on, there are good football players here that have been just a step or 2 out of position, maybe not in sync, reading their keys exactly right. But from an athletic standpoint, Gary still believes the Beavers have a chance to be a very good defense.
You know, if you break us down from a structural standpoint, you know, there's some situations where we get lost a little bit as youthful players, and we need to make sure that we help those kids not to get lost, and we put the kids in the best position they can to be able to succeed. And that comes from gap assignments, that comes from overrunning, over pursuing, you know, knowing when it's time to squeeze back on a block and make it easier for the next guy that's going to come in with his gap assignment. And you know, it's like I told the kids this morning, we sit down, we break it down, and really spend time with them. It's a real teaching tape. That tape is a great teaching tape to be able to let them understand where they are, how close I believe they are. I think they're very, very close to flipping the switch to becoming a very competitive defense.
They need to start getting more help from the veteran guys up front. That's really where it all starts in trying to slow the run down. He mentions youthful mistakes and guys like Kessie Ahoy making an impact on this defense. Key Wetzel, a redshirt freshman, starting to impact play. But to really take it forward now, Kalani Vakamalilau, Titus Failunga, Elu Aiden, these guys up front, Philip Napoleon, they've got to show up against a very good running attack in Minnesota with Brooks and Smith and a good offensive line, a running quarterback in Demery Croft. I think the Beavers are going to make huge steps in the run game against a run-oriented team Saturday night.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike. We'll see you back here on Friday. So the Beavers need a fix on the defense fast. A look at that in our Les Schwab quick fix. Portland State racking up 515 yards, 291 on the ground. You take a look at just what they've done in Gary Anderson's era. So statistically a little better stopping the run, but of course we haven't even gotten into Pac-12 play. I did think it was interesting how Gary Anderson talked about, and this is something he said even prior to this week, but we're close, we have the talent. I know you probably don't think so.
It doesn't look close.
I mean, do you think it's close? What do you think?
He's giving his team confidence.
Okay.
He's giving his team confidence.
Okay, that's fair to say, but I mean, it doesn't look close. They don't look good. This was a freshman quarterback that ran all over them, and then a receiver who plays quarterback in his free time that came in and almost beat them. And there's all this talk about, oh, when Craig Evans from Michigan State gets eligible and blah blah blah. Well, I got news for you. Craig Evans is not a savior, okay? Neither was Kyle Pecco. Like, let's be clear about that. Like, this is not a one-man thing. This is a team effort. And again, if Manasseh, who has been banged up this week and hasn't practiced that much, doesn't play, they're in huge trouble.
Yeah, I just think someone on the defense needs to step up and be a leader. I was watching the bench, and there wasn't anybody really getting anyone's face. It was kind of confusing, I remember
I feel like it was kind of dead in general.
Yeah, I mean, there should be a guy, a leader that is talking to the guys on the bench, like, hey, come on, guys, let's change this. Let's get going.
Who was that when you played?
Oh, God, Derek Doggett, God, Savvy Piscatelli. I mean, the list goes on. We had 3 or 4 guys that were, always in each other's faces. Keenan Lewis, Brandon Hughes. I mean, the list goes on.
Is there any common threads you can find between week 1 and week 2 where these breakdowns? Are you seeing the same things over and over again? Are you seeing new things kind of crop up on the defense?
No, just the same old. I mean, it's the same old thing.
It just looks bad.
Week 1 to week 2
No
did not change defensively for me. Maybe a little more swagger because we're playing Portland State. I don't know, or I don't know. I didn't see much. Hopefully, this weekend is a different story.
What sort of things do you think Craig Evans, may bring? I know you say it's not a fix-all, but obviously, played at Michigan State, so he's got that Big Ten pedigree.
Has Big Ten pedigree, played at Michigan State. Michigan State's been good. He's a big body. He won't be intimidated by the environment. That's one thing. And Luton talked about this, when you bring in a JUCO guy, there's kind of an adjustment period. Oh my gosh, I don't really know what I'm doing. It won't be like that. But first of all, he's still not eligible. And he's not going to fix it. It's not a one-man band. This is a problem throughout the entire unit.
Yeah.
And a very big problem with 2 very capable running backs coming to town in Minnesota. We're going to take a closer look at those guys. And, of course, coming up next, we get the real way how to pronounce Noah Tongiai.
Good job. Correctly,
yeah, ever since high school around. Even before that, in school, elementary, middle school, so I'm pretty used to it. Whatever anybody says, I'll let it slide.
You respond.
Yeah.
Oregon State coaches are really excited about this young tight end, Tongiai. He's a go-to guy. He can do the job at the line of scrimmage and also get open for you.
Luton steps up to the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Oregon State. Tongiai holds it in. Extremely excited about getting him back.
Go down the middle, Chunhyang. Noah Tongiai with a straight arm inside the 5-yard line.
And this is the tight end, big part for the Beavers.
Noah Tongiai leading the way over the first 2 games. 7 catches for 67 yards versus Colorado State and a touchdown, and 5 catches for 95 yards against Portland State. After missing much of the 2016 season with a knee injury, he has been back with a vengeance, quickly becoming one of Jake Luton's favorite targets. They've often referred to him as a safety blanket for him. Lindsay had the chance to sit down with him to talk about his expectations for the season and why football means so much to him.
Rams bring pressure again. 3rd and long. Luton steps up to the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Oregon State. Tongiai holds it in.
First question. Tell us the correct way to pronounce your name.
Noah Tongiai.
So almost like an N sound,
Almost like an N.
even though there's not an N in it.
Yes.
Okay. Are you used to everyone saying it incorrectly?
Yeah,
though?
ever since high school around. Even before that, in school, elementary, middle school, so I'm pretty used to it. Whatever anybody says, I'll let it slide.
You respond.
Yeah, I know they're trying to say my name, so.
Luton had said early on that you were one of the targets that he just built a relationship with right away from the second he was on campus, and he felt like you would be an important piece of the offense. How did you guys build a bond so quickly?
Just through football, obviously. He came spring ball, and right off the bat, first practices, he told me that one of his favorite targets is the tight end. And from there on, we just kind of clicked, in practice. Off the
You have to love to hear that, right?
Yeah, I was really happy. Even with Daryl, Daryl last year too. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play, but from the first moment I met Daryl, he told me almost the same thing, and we clicked right away, and so yeah.
You're Polynesian. You have a lot of ties to Hawaii. You grew up kind of going back and forth between Hawaii and Utah. Football is so important in the islands. Why does it mean so much to Polynesian culture, do you think?
I think it means a lot to us because, a lot of our families don't really have a way to pay for college. It's kind of hard to get a scholarship off academics, which would be fine as well, but we kind of find this as our way into getting into college pretty much, and getting an education that our parents cannot pay for.
It's going down the middle, Chunhyang. Noah Chunhyang with a straight arm inside the 5-yard line.
Before I came here, I didn't know much about Oregon State. I didn't even know who was on the team, how they did the year before, before Coach Jay got here. But when I came on my visit, I was kind of surprised to see how many Polynesians were actually here and how many I came on my visit with. And that right there, it kind of helped me make my decision. It made me more comfortable because I knew that I was going to be around an environment that felt like home.
What do you think the offense and the team can do this year?
I think that we could be a great offense in this league. We showed signs of it in the first 2 games, but a lot of negatives hit us, a lot of things that we need to clean up, and it shows on film that if we clean those little things up, we could be the offense that Coach believes that we can be, and we believe we can be as well. And I think that in the next couple of weeks, as we keep working hard and keep correcting things, I think we'll be exactly where we want to be.
So Noah Chunhyang.
Good job.
Right? I tried.
I told him we would practice a lot in this.
Right. Just looking at what he's done over the past 2 weeks, how great of a mismatch is he when you look at it going into Pac-12 play? I mean, I feel like that's a huge advantage for this team. Huge
advantage. Here he almost reminds me of the advantage of when we had Jonas Newton. I swear, where we line up Jonas, it was such a mismatch. And I'm starting to feel that way with this, with Noah. We haven't had a tight end this dynamic in a long time, and it's good to have him.
And we've talked before about, that he's different for Oregon State because they haven't had one really since Joe Halahuni and the Mike Riley era. But when you look around college football, there's a lot of people that don't really use tight ends. In the Pac-12, it's mostly been Stanford the last few years. So that's another advantage, is that he's just hard to prepare for.
And I know the position coaches for Oregon State said, there's really nobody more talented and athletic than him across the Pac-12. You agree with that statement?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, he's great not only catching the ball, but he can block. And nowadays, a lot of these tight ends can't block.
Very
it's
true.
Unfortunate. They're just receivers, big body receivers. But this guy can block, he can catch the ball well, and he can run after the catch.
I think the part that kind of stinks for Oregon State fans is that Noah should be eligible for the NFL draft after this year, and I think he's probably going to be going.
Yeah, especially after the injury last year, right?
Right. Exactly. And I just want to say, too, that everyone who is from Corvallis or has been to Corvallis will appreciate, I asked him how often he eats at Local Boys, the wonderful Hawaiian food restaurant. They cut that part, even though it's vital information.
And someone here goes.
Well, when I was in school, a lot. It depended if it was in the first of the month, because that's when I got my scholarship check, so I was rich.
Okay, that's important.
So I made sure I blew all my little money to Local Boys, but now maybe once every other month.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to keep the dad bod down.
All right, coming up next, the smoke from the Eagle Creek fire has some of the state's teams moving to clearer skies. What's the Beavers' plan? And we're catching up with Teron Ward later in the show. Plenty of Beavers doing big things in the NFL. Teams had to get down to their 53-man rosters over the weekend. Here's a look at the defensive players in the league, not counting rookie Treston Decoud down in Houston. He, too, made the Texans' final cut. And a look at the offensive stars still playing. Brandon Cooks expected to be a major part of the Patriots' offense now that Julian Edelman is out with an ACL injury. He even got a little praise from Tom Brady this week for his professionalism. Also of note, Jaquiz Rodgers expected to be the starter with Doug Martin suspended for the first 3 games. Now we're catching up with another running back still in the league, Teron Ward. He's so dedicated to our show. He's joining us from the massage table. He's got to take care of his body. And Devontae Freeman has been out for the Falcons, so he's had the opportunity to have a very productive preseason. How have you tried to seize the opportunity, Teron?
I think I played well this preseason. That's kind of a motto of our team here in Atlanta, is next man up whenever you get your opportunity to take the full advantage of it. And that's what I try to do every time I got the opportunity. So I think I had a productive preseason, getting excited for the regular season to start.
So anything surprised you about life in the NFL?
No, not too much. I mean, I have an older brother that played in the league for 5 years before I even stepped foot in the NFL. So I kind of had a little window to experience what he was going through. So, no, not too much. I stay low-key in what I do, so there's never anything that's overwhelming for me, I should say.
So speaking of your brother, TJ joining Tampa Bay, that means you guys get to face each other 2 times this year. What is it?
Yeah.
What is that going to be like? How excited are you about that?
He's just blessed to be on a good team, you know. He came from a good team, the Broncos. They let him go, and now he goes to another good team, a division rivalry. So it's going to be fun, you know. 2 games a year, our family are going to be able to enjoy that moment. One in Atlanta, one in Tampa Bay. So, and we're only an hour flight away from each other now. So it's going to be special. You know, not too many people can say they have a brother that plays in the NFL and they're in the division and you play them twice. So it's going to be fun this year.
What's the best? Who else in the league do you keep in contact with from Oregon State?
Well, I'm fortunate to have 2 Beavers on my team with Andy Levitre and Sharon Harlow, but I talked to B Cooks, J Poe, Quiz, Wheat, Rashad, DJ, Steve Nelson. I mean, we all keep in touch. We might not talk every day, but we check in on each other and see how everything's going. And it's been good that way. I'm glad we have enough guys in the league that we can actually, you know, see each other week in, week out, play and perform, and have someone to root for that week.
Who besides yourself do you think is going to be posed for a breakout season this year?
Victor Bolden, like I said, he had a great preseason, earned a spot on the 53-man roster in San Francisco. So excited for things for him. He had 2 big returns, and punt return and kick return. You know, speed kills. It always has, especially in NFL. You have to be able to run. The NFL is a running league, and the more speed you have, the better you're off in this league. So I think just his dynamic ability to have speed and cut without slowing down is going to be really effective in this league.
So I know you haven't gotten a chance to watch a ton of Oregon State games this season, but what do you think about how they've played so far?
Like I said, I think it's early. The first game, there was a close game until halftime, and then Colorado State broke away. And then the next game against Portland State was a close game. So looking for the seniors and juniors to have a lot of older leadership and take the team under their ranks and see if they can pull a good season together. I know Coach A is a good coach, and I know he's putting the right tools and techniques in those guys. So he's looking for the senior leadership to step in and see if they can make something happen this year.
We do want to reiterate, he was on the massage table. He was getting rehab. We are a family-friendly show here. Evanston, obviously, you were an undrafted guy. To see guys like Teron making it happen, still surviving in the league, and also, what is the path like for an undrafted running back?
It's
How
tough.
difficult is it?
It's tough. And not only that, Teron faced it when he was at Oregon State. He wasn't a starter most of the time. Maybe started 5 or 6 games or something like that.
When other people were hurt.
Yeah, and Storm was the guy, and so he always battled that. And so going into for him to not be a starter in college and then go to the pros and make a 53-man roster as a backup in college, essentially, it's impressive, and it's not easy. And I'm sure guys are like, "Did you play there?" Because when they probably tuned in, they probably didn't see him on TV.
But you want to know probably why he made a roster is because he played mostly under Mike Riley, and Mike Riley had an NFL playbook.
Yeah, and so when I was a G as a running back, it's funny you say that. I got a chance to coach him, and he was so smart, and everybody went to him to ask him about this play or this how this defense is, and he wasn't even a starter, but people would come to him and ask him stuff, and he was so sharp. And I know for a fact that's why he made that team, is because his football IQ is so high.
So Brandon Cook's getting a lot of love in Boston. As I mentioned, you're getting called out by Tom Brady. That's always a positive. Last season, top 10 in receiving yards and touchdowns. Also had the longest TD in the NFL last season. Why do you feel like he has been able to succeed? And I will say probably part of it is going from Drew Brees to Tom Brady. That doesn't hurt.
Well, I think that goes back. Brandon has a great football IQ.
Yeah.
What Teron said about Victor Bolden, speed kills. Cooks has some serious wheels. And the thing that I always think about with Brandon Cooks is when he was still at Oregon State, we were talking one time, and he was initially committed to UCLA, flipped it, decided to come to OSU, and he said, "Lindsay, people come to OSU. This is a place you can get business done. You can learn how to be in the NFL in this program."
Yeah.
So I'm not at all surprised. I mean, he was the number 10 pick, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the work ethic is there. I mean, he
100%.
works. He's the last guy off the field, and he actually is the last guy. It's not just one of those things you just say. And then, obviously we go back to why he came to Oregon State is because Oregon State gives you a chance to play early in your career. And he knew that, because if you went to UCLA, you probably had to stand behind be behind a 5-star player, 4-star player, but coming to Oregon State, he's the guy right off the bat.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about Victor Bolden. We'll talk more about him in just a second. 3 Beavers rookies making the final 53-man roster. That's our Comcast business class, built for performance. Sean Harlow with the Atlanta Falcons, Tresson Decoud with the Houston Texans, and Victor Bolden, the only undrafted guy on that list, making a name for himself in San Francisco. Who has the brightest future among that trio?
Well, what I was thinking is that if Bolden doesn't have a great return in the regular season, people are probably going to be upset.
Yeah.
But Sean Harlow is someone that we've talked about a lot that, the Beavers are missing this year.
Yeah.
So I would guess that it's one of those two.
Yeah, one of those two. I like Bolden because in the NFL, the X factor is the special teams. If you can set up a great return or get great field position, that helps the offense tremendously. And yeah, he's gonna be scary. And yeah, he made that team because of those 2 returns to lead that.
Well, and I love that you bring up again the special teams aspect of it, because I know in teams that I've covered, so many of those undrafted guys, they're the ones doing the thankless work on special teams. Then that gets you the chance to get in there, get in the coach's good graces. I mean, can he make a career and a niche out of special teams?
Totally, and I just want to say that's why another Beaver that's on an NFL roster, Jordan Poyer, that's why Jordan Poyer played right away at Oregon State, because he did so much on special teams. And that was part of why I was talking about this with someone the other day to bring this back to the current Oregon State team. Someone asked me, why is that true freshman running back, why isn't he redshirting? Because they wanted to use him on special teams. You get comfortable there, you make a name for yourself there, you're going to get more opportunities.
Oh yeah. And even Devin Hester made a career because of special teams.
Absolutely. All right, a little later in the show, a deep dive into Minnesota, how PJ Fleck is putting his stamp on the program. But first, we're going down to Corvallis in our top headlines of the week. Lindsay weighs in on a special freshman performance. We have a great interview coming up on Friday's show. Catch our one-on-one with Daryl Garrettson. He's going to talk about being a change of pace quarterback. You don't want to miss it Friday night at 9 p.m. Time now for our standard TV and appliance headlines with Lindsay, where we're breaking down the stories of the week. And this first one has to do with something we are all dealing with up here in Portland, the smoke, right?
How about those hazy, crazy days of fall, Amanda? Here it is, September, and as everyone knows, our state is on fire. It's especially upsetting, of course, up here in Portland with the gorge fire so close. But it is creating problems, too, in the Pac-12. Both Oregon and Oregon State are supposed to host this weekend. Now, the Beavers have practiced outside this week. Gary Anderson said Tuesday that until a team doctor tells him that he is not it's not safe for the players, it's not healthy, they will be practicing. He also made a little comment about that he had no problems on the treadmill earlier this week. Inside on the treadmill. Right? But this is going to be something that everyone continues to monitor. Initially, there was weather forecast for rain. Now it looks like that might go away. Air quality has not been good. It's a much bigger problem in Eugene, but watch for the Pac-12 and Oregon State to talk about this. I'm really curious. I think they'll play. What will the crowd be like, though?
I did think it was interesting, one of the Oregon State players that said they grew up in Southern California, so it didn't really bother them, all the smog. Number 2. Big Ten is known for some big, powerful guys. Minnesota really no exception, right?
Okay, Minnesota is bringing 2 good running backs to this party, Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks. That is not good news for Oregon State. Gary Anderson talked this week about Minnesota and how physical they want to be.
They wanted to run the ball physically in the first game, and that's always been an MO of where those guys sit in the Big Ten and what they've done in the past. You know, they competed in a fairly tight football game. They competed very well, which has again been part of who they are for many, many years. And
okay, so Minnesota, as Amanda mentioned, the physical, Big Ten, that's everything. So Smith is the one who played last year. Brooks was hurt. Smith carried the ball 25 times for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns at Minnesota last year. Brooks, how about this, Amanda? He has, in his career at Minnesota, besides the fact that he's gone for over 1,400 yards, he has run for a touchdown, caught a touchdown, and thrown a touchdown. So this is going to be big for a defense that's given up over 240 rushing yards per game so far. They better be ready to fill some gaps.
Got to prepare for everything, it sounds like. Number 3, we're turning to Oregon State's offense for this one. A positive, right?
Yeah, how about the freshman phenom, Isaiah Hodgins? You know, everyone was really excited when he committed initially. 4-star, you don't get a lot of those in Corvallis. Kept his commitment even when his position coach, Brent Brennan, took a head coaching job at San Jose State. To me, this is huge for recruiting, okay? You had a true freshman. Besides the fact that that's just awesome that he stepped up in a clutch situation, this is going to be big when you go on the road because you can tell these other kids, hey, there are snaps to be had in Corvallis. You come here, you're going to play right away, and you have proof of that. Look, there's other young kids playing too for Oregon State, so that's a positive. You can spin it as a positive on the recruiting trail.
As far as how he's looked as a true freshman, how do you think he's compared to some of the other ones you've seen in your career coming in here?
Well, I think kind of like the person that sets the standard when I think of true freshmen who played is Jaquiz Rogers, and we all knew what he was going to be to a certain degree, but people were really impressed. The impressive thing about Quiz was that he picked up on the really complicated playbook early on. But Hodgins, I was really impressed because they targeted him so much in week 1. It didn't go as well. But week 2, I mean, I know it's an FCS opponent, and we're going to talk more about the problems that caused them. But to be able to come through in the clutch when you don't have that experience, that's huge.
Yeah. All right, much more to come here on the show, including some fans are concerned that this team goes winless for the rest of the season. We hope not, for our sake here on the show. Here's a look at where some of the wins can come from coming up later in the show. And up next, how this Minnesota team has changed under PJ Fleck.
Minnesota is another game that we're looking forward to play because we need to show for it that we can play with a Big Ten team.
Well, they won 9 games. They're talented. They're tough. They're physical. They're always going to stay in games because of that. They understand I don't know what their plan to win is now, but they understood what their plan to win was, and they have good players.
That game was frustrating, especially since, I mean, I got hurt in the second quarter. So I couldn't necessarily give it my all in the crunch time when I needed it. But hopefully this year we get payback. And it was frustrating, but we learn from our mistakes, and we can only move forward.
Well, a wild one last season when these two teams faced off. Minnesota hanging on to win 30-23. A big part of that was how well their defense played. 9 tackles for loss. Season average just 4 sacks in that game. Their season average just a half a sack all season. Those numbers brought to you by Toyota of Portland. Opponent preview. This team over the past 2 seasons has had a lot of really good defenses. They allowed just 262 yards and 7 points in their opener against Buffalo. PJ Fleck that's his brother. I'm just kidding. PJ Fleck, he wasn't happy with that performance. But what do you feel like makes their defenses tough?
Well, Gary Anderson has said that they have a defensive lineman, Steven Richardson, who Anderson says is one of the best in the country at his position. 6 foot, 292 pounds on the D-line. It's what we talked about, in our headline segment. These guys in the Big Ten, they just got big bodies. Now, I also remember last year against Minnesota, there were a lot of targeting calls. These people like to hit hard.
Oh, yeah. No, they're a big defense. Fast as well. Athletic at the linebacker position, and the DBs are athletic as well. It's going to be tough. They're Big Ten,
How many Big Ten teams did you face? Do you remember?
Oh, God. A lot of concussions.
Or at least one? I was just saying, I
don't think I did.
No, you didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to Ohio State next year? I don't know why that's on the schedule. It's not a home and home.
Let's not even go that far right now. Yeah, let's just worry about Minnesota right now.
Well, probably the most troublesome issue here will be the running back position. Certainly their most talented position with Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks. You can look at their career numbers. We didn't see, which one was it, Lindsay? Smith was the only one that was available last season.
Smith played last year, yeah. Brooks was hurt. He missed the first couple games, and like I said earlier, Brooks is really versatile. Obviously, they use him as a back, but he also can catch passes. Evidently, he can throw them, too. Yeah. So, but these are just two guys. Look, if you're Minnesota, so Minnesota played on Thursday or Friday night last week, so they got to watch Oregon State in real time. And if I'm Minnesota and I watched Oregon State against Portland State, I'm like licking my lips. I'm a running back.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. These two backs they look good, and they remind me of Lawrence Maroney and Marion Barber. Those two backs, when they shared time in Minnesota, they're great 1-2 punch. They're tough runners. They can catch the ball well. They run the ball very well between the tackles. So it's not going to be an easy task.
So from an Oregon State defensive perspective, is there a key thing that they really need to hone in on to try to slow these guys?
Tackling better. We got
just that, right? We're back to basics.
Yeah, we got to tackle better, period. We don't want those backs to get to the second level. We want to get them at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage.
Okay, this is PJ Fleck's very first season at Minnesota. Boy, he is a character, isn't he? Minnesota.
Have you watched the documentary, Being PJ Fleck?
I haven't, but now I feel like I really need to, right? What do you feel like the stamp or at least the what it seems like it's going to be at Minnesota?
Okay, so this is one of the hot young coaches in football. There were a lot of rumors when the Ducks were out hiring someone that maybe PJ Fleck was going to be in the mix. Had a wonderful season last year at Western Michigan, played in the Cotton Bowl. Row the boat is his phrase. It's over the top in my opinion, but they're just going to row that boat right over the Beaver Dam based on what I saw Saturday against Portland State, which is not good. But this is a guy that he brings a lot of hype, and Western Michigan gave USC a lot of trouble last week.
Yeah.
So even though Minnesota's final score over Buffalo was not super intimidating, they're going to be hyped for this game.
Oh yeah, they're going to be ready to go. And one thing about him, if he does get fired, he's going to be a great motivational speaker.
That's a good point.
But he motivates his team so much, and coming to the West Coast, he's going to be like, hey, this is the Pac-12 team. Let's show them who the Big Ten is. I'm sure he's motivating them like crazy.
I anticipate them coming out with a lot of energy because that's just like how he lives his life.
Yeah.
I think I heard him talking about how he was the solution to like every person's problem too, no matter what it is.
Like I said, he's got a lot of personality, a lot of character, but it's going to be about, does that translate? We were talking off camera about teams often have trouble coming into Reser at night. It's going to be a late kick for Minnesota. Oregon State is favored in the betting lines right now. So how does this all play out? But Oregon State, what Manasseh said about, we overlooked our opponent and they came out dead, that cannot happen again.
We're not overlooking this team at all. I can guarantee you that.
All right, more to come here on Talkin Beavers. But first, Evanston's getting you ready for Saturday's game at the OSU Beaver store.
Hey Beaver Nation, we're at the OSU Beaver store, and we got Minnesota this weekend. It's going to be a night game. So here we have our quarter zip with the Go Bees in the back. I love that look. And then we have our long sleeve. Looks sort of good. And then you got the Oregon State down the sleeve. And we got other items here too that'll keep you nice and warm for that game. Make your way to the OSU Beaver store. Fans start here.
Plenty of Oregon State football coverage coming your way every week during the fall. Talkin Beavers airing Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Then Inside the Huddle featuring Gary Anderson airs Thursdays at 10 p.m. And the best pregame coverage for you coming your way Friday nights at 9 o'clock on Go Beavs. So after this final tune-up for them, non-conference, then it is on to Pac-12 play. And the Pac-12 North, as you have said, really one of, if not the best division in college football.
And by the way, Cal does not seem like a gimme win after they went to North Carolina with, no roster and won on the road. So that's bad news.
So let's take a look at their remaining schedule. And it is, it's a murderer's row, certainly, in that late September, early October. Does this team get to 6 wins?
Okay, if they play like they did against Portland State, a FCS opponent, who I don't think is going to win the Big Sky for the record, I don't know that they're going to win another game. To me, the biggest concern is this. Okay, right now I would not pick them to beat Minnesota. Let's say they lose to Minnesota. Then they got to go into Pac-12, and they do have a bye in there, but they have a long stretch coming up of really good teams. And Evanston, they could just get beat mentally, I think.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm worried about is, are they going to be beat down?
Yeah, and physically. It's a Big Ten team. They're going to try to pound the heck out of us. And we got to, one of the things for me, we have to see the defense improve, period. That's it. And this offense is a good offense. They can run the ball well. They can throw the ball well. So I think our defense just really has to bring it.
You usually see the biggest improvement week 1 to week 2. So even though the Beavers already had like an early week 1 with week 0, maybe we see a big improvement this week when everyone else around the country improves.
Yeah, and it also helps to get a win, right? And then we got a bye week after.
Yes.
So this will be a huge win if we can get this one right here, rest up, and then go into the Pac-12s.
Okay, what are your X factors for Saturday's game? The must-dos. Or who to watch?
Coach Clune's X factor.
Okay, why is he the X factor?
I got to see the defense improve, and he's got to give those guys some confidence. And maybe, I don't want to say dumb down the defense, but make it a little more simple. Make those guys play like they're just flying around. You can kind of see there's a little hesitation. I want to see them just kind of flying around.
They got to hold Minnesota to less than 150 yards on the ground total, not just in the
I did ask.
half.
I was
total.
Like each back 150 yards.
It'll be a tough task. Going to be a tough one.
Yeah. What do you anticipate happening? Which is one thing I will say is strange. Oregon State actually favored in this one.
Yeah.
By Vegas odds.
Look, I'm happy to be wrong, but I don't know that they're going to win this game. They need to come out ready to go.
Tough one.
All right. We will see you back here for Go Beavs on Friday night at 9 p.m.